Hey everybody, today we are talking about The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. The Island of Sea Women is a book about Korean women that live on Jeju Island and have to deal with a lot of hard obstacles because this is set in the time of when there was a lot of wars going on that didn't directly involve their island, but was the base for many other countries to come through and kind of use while other things were being settled and while discussions were being made about Korea. And this also involved the time where Korea was split into the two sections, and Jeju Island was unfortunately part of all of this craziness and madness that had happened during this time. I did not realize that upon first reading it. I did not realize that that was what this book was going to be like. But yeah, I just thought it was going to be this nice little book about real life mermaids. And part of it is about that, but it's so much more about not that. So basically, we start out with our Young-suk, our main character Young-suk, and she is a haenyo. I'm probably not saying that right, but it basically means a sea diver. And she does that with a group of other people in their collective. And it goes back and forth from 2008, which is like the present time, and then it goes back, and most of the story is set back in the like 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Maybe even actually I think it starts even earlier than that, in the 20s. But she is 1938 is the earliest. So she is young at that time, just barely a teenager, and Mija is her best friend that lives down the way, and they are going to learn how to dive together. And Young-suk's mom is the leader of the collective, and she is going to take them on their first dive. And so the dive seems to be going pretty well, and then at the last second, the person who's considered a baby diver with Young-suk and Mija, Young-suk is paired with Yuri, and she says, oh wait, I saw an octopus, I'm gonna go back down there and get it. And so instead of going back to the boat like they were supposed to, Young-suk just follows her down there, and the octopus latches onto Yuri and unfortunately changes her entire life. She got brain damage because of it, and so when she woke up, she was no longer the same. And it's just like an eye-opening, like right at the beginning of the book, eye-opening that things can happen undersea that you have to be so careful about, because things could change in a second. You have to be careful. You have to make sure you're breathing properly and going back up for air, giving yourself enough time to do that. And there's just dangers every day that you could face while doing this. But what I really found interesting about this book is that the women are the main providers for the home. They're the ones that make the money. They're the ones that go to work every day, and the dads stay home and take care of the children and cook dinner when they get home. And so it's kind of like a swapped idea versus a lot of things that we're used to with the roles of men and women and husbands and wives. And so they save some food for themselves, they sell most of it to markets and earn their money that way. And it's really interesting because they have to dive on their own and go really down far to get the really good kind of sea creatures that they are after. And when you're a baby diver, that's when you're basically just learning and you are considered a baby diver for a while before you change to a small diver. And then you're a grandma diver when you're old enough to really be like professional at this, and you know what you're doing and you can make good decisions on your own. Though you always have partners because you want to be safe just in case something happens unexpectedly. So anyways, they have this system, and that's what they do every day. And I thought that was like fascinating because they don't use oxygen tanks. Even when they were something that you could use, they decided not to, because that meant that they could go down longer and get more and mess up the harvest and cause the sea creatures to like run out quicker, and they didn't want to be greedy and take too much, so that the nature of the sea can stay fairly undisturbed, which is great. A great mindset for them to have. And this had gone on for years and years and years, and when oxygen tanks were made, they still didn't do it. They continued to dive the natural way, and it created a different kind of lung capacity in these divers because of how much they had to breathe and then dive down and create the amount of time that they could stay under the water long enough to be able to get something and pull back up. I cannot breathe underwater worth crap. I like take 30 seconds and I'm done. Like I can't hold my breath any longer than that. And so yeah, I would not be very good at this job. But what's really cool is when they come back up, it's called Sumbisori, which again, probably not saying it right, but it's the sound that they make when they come up for air. They kind of gasp to get that collection of air back. And each woman has a different sound, so they have a different Sumbisori that they make when they come up for air, and everyone's is unique. And I thought that was really cool too. Going on to the sad part of the story, the 4-3 incident happened and lasted like 7 years, and it was basically when people came and invaded the island, and they created a horrible place for them to live. Everyone, like at one point, sea diving was off the table. You couldn't do it anymore, and so it was really hard to get food. It was really hard to it was just really hard to get food and survive. A lot of people were getting killed. Hundreds of people were getting killed. Thousands of innocent people, so many innocent people were getting killed because of unnecessary shootings where people would just shoot innocent people because they were there was just they didn't have any control. Like if they did one thing that was considered possibly bad, or they were on the wrong political side and someone found out about it, that was it for you. Something very tragic happens to Young-suk and her family. Everyone where they're at in the city, they've been pushed away from their normal home and they're in a new area, and everyone that was there, the people were like, we were gonna just have to kill everyone here. And there was like hundreds of people in that area that they were just saying that they were gonna have to just kill, and they were innocent and they did nothing wrong. And it just makes me really, really sad because this really happened, and it made me look up a lot of stuff about it as I was reading, looking at the pictures and of the island, so I could get an idea of like where they lived and what their houses looked like. And later on in the story, they several years later, they make a memorial where you can walk and you can see all the names of the innocent people that died, and go in like graveyards and just a place that they dedicated for all these people. And I looked up pictures to see what that really looked like, and it's just insane how big that area is with the names on it, because so many people just did not have to die in this because they did nothing wrong. And just the way that Lisa C. wrote the story was very well done, and just made me sitting there, like there were times where I would finish reading a section, especially after the tragic thing that happened to Young-suk. I just like had to stare at the page for a second and like fully try to process what I just read, because it was just the most gruesome, terrible thing that is just like really hard to imagine happening to someone that I know, or because I've never been surrounded with this kind of war, or this kind of tragedy before. And it's just like what I was saying with The Mountains Sing, that book too, with the Vietnam War. It was just so like heavy to read, but this book was even heavier, and I didn't know that's what I was getting myself into. But I'm still grateful for it because I really did like this book a lot. I got to learn a lot more about the culture of Haenyeo and how they made a living and the way that they lived on this island. I got to learn a lot about the sadness and the grief that people had to go through during those several years of the 4-3 incident, and as well as other things that happened before that and after that. And even with all of that, one of the biggest things that is in this story is, one of the biggest themes, I would say, is anger and forgiveness. Because there are things that happen in here that you would think is impossible to forgive and would definitely make you angry if you were in these situations. And whether or not you're going to decide to overcome that anger and decide to forgive and let go, or if you're going to let it eat you up inside. And Young-suk had to go through so much with her anger and with her decision of whether or not she should forgive certain people in her life that she felt greatly wronged her, which I agree with. I think that she was also very wronged, and she didn't know the full story, which meant that I didn't know the full story, but I could still see both sides of it, where it would be hard to forgive and not be angry. But I could also see all the people around her trying to help her to realize that if she did forgive, her anger would diminish and she would be able to move on, because bad things happened to everybody during that time. Everyone in the town or everyone in the island was affected. And so it gives you a lot to think about. Like, are you on her side completely, or do you agree what other people are trying to tell her? And I found myself kind of on both sides. It would be a really hard situation to be in, the situation that she was in. And of course, I don't want to give the exact details away of it, because it was so impactful when I read it that I would hate to ruin that for you on your reading experience. So with all that said, pick this book up, read it. I actually did give it a 5-star rating. I usually don't do that, but this book was really, really good that I think it deserved 5 stars. Like, no brainer kind of thing from me, for like, I should just rate this one, because I really do think it was outstanding. And yeah, made me want to do my own research to learn more about the real events that happened surrounding this. So if you would like to learn more about the real life mermaids and also the struggles that they had to go through during all of the wars and things that were going on during that time, definitely pick this up and give it a read and let me know what you think about it, because man, it was a really good one. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.